Good evening. Those of us who fought in the struggle against apartheid know what it's like to be outnumbered by a sinister foe, and also know what it's like to just win anyway. Science is undergoing a very similar transition to what South Africa did some 30 years ago. Have a look at this video and you'll see why.
Have you ever seen the real difference in sizes between Jupiter and the inner planets? This is a better scale. Embodied gravity is a computational process that allows us to calculate numerous interacting gravity fields. Also known as the many-body problem, I know of only 2 other people who have solved it, though it is likely there are a few others. Orbit Game 5, or OG5, is the simplest 3-body gravity algorithm. It is just a sun, planet and moon, without specified scale, but according to the basic geometric principle within Newton's law of gravity. It easily shows that the gravity of the sun will pull at the moon until it is eventually stolen away, and the moon becomes an inner planet. It's a very simple program to work, and can be quite a bit of fun too. The other interesting feature in OG5 is that in a few lucky situations it shows that the moon can sometimes be recaptured by the planet. But here the orbit gets too wide and the moon gets flung out into space. There are some parameters that the user can alter in this free program. Here we start the orbit of the moon just 1% closer. Notice that now the moon is 420 trips from the planet, but in the previous example it was 425. The sun now captures the moon a bit sooner. It's important to realize that this is not at a proper scale, or else the moon's orbit would be inside one single pixel, and you would not see the evolution of the gravity structure. Now we see that although the planet influences the orbit of its lost moon, it cannot win it back. That 1% difference of the smallest body from earlier has altered the entire gravity structure. The moon is just too close to the sun now, so we can easily see how Jupiter loses its moons to the sun, and that is how these little inner planets get their orbits. At last count, Jupiter had no less than 69 moons, so it's a very popular part of the solar system. We will see why that is a bit later. I've still not yet managed to see it capture the moon in a retrograde orbit that moves in the opposite direction, but theoretically it's feasible. We can alter the positions in this algorithm because it is entirely evolutionary. So it's not a historical map nor a statistical database. Very few other models are evolutionary according to the laws of physics. We can easily move the planet inwards, but just as easily it kicks the moon outwards again. Later this year, in 2019, I will be releasing the essential source code formula to the public, so stay tuned to join in this great adventure. Play around freely with OG5 to see the dynamic evolutionary process. The explanation. It's all about the gravity between the sun and the moon. The gravity of the sun on the moon is far stronger at position G6 than at G3. So the Sun pulls the Moon from the Earth at, allegedly, 38 millimeters per year. Regardless of how accurate the 38 millimeter movement is, eventually the Sun will capture the Moon. Thus, the inner planets must be moons of Jupiter. But OG5 only uses Newton's law. What happens when we apply Einstein's formula to the algorithm? Orbit Gravity Sim 12, or OGS12, is more complex. It uses exact scales for time and distance, which can also be altered. Scenario 6 is slow but accurate, so that 1 second for us equals 167 virtual minutes. OGS12 is only a two-body algorithm, so scenario 6 and 7 only depict the orbit of the Moon around the Earth, without the Sun. So far this is still just according to Newton's law, but after this we will compare the result to Einstein's formulae. OGS15 will be published later this year in 2019. It involves 9 bodies of the solar system in 3 dimensions, so the Sun's exact effect on the Moon has not quite been calculated yet. Scenario 7 is less accurate at a time rate of 1 second equals 1 day. It shows the proportionally correct sizes of the Moon and Earth. Look closely at the Earth to see how the Moon's gravity actually shifts the Earth by thousands of kilometers each orbit. In the bottom left corner, you will see the sparkles showing the recording of the maximum distance between Earth and Moon for each orbit. These differences between orbits are about plus minus 40 meters due to scenario 7 being fast but a little inaccurate. Scenario 6 deviates by about half a meter between orbits. The more calculations for an orbit, the more accurate it gets. We can switch to see the nearest distances for each orbit too. This graph shows those details of the orbits, and you can see how it varies in scenario 7 by plus minus 40 meters. Now we see scenario 8, which is slow and accurate. Notice at the top right corner the sparkles show where Einstein's general relativity is selected as part of the process. Einstein reckoned that gravity moves at the speed of light, so you can see now gravity is delayed by 1.35 seconds. Thus the gravity of the Moon pulls the Earth to a position 1.3 kilometers behind the center of the Moon, on the path of the Moon's orbit. The gravity delay results in the Moon moving away from the Earth at a massive 423 meters per orbit, as this graph shows. But special relativity entails accelerations being reduced as the velocity gets closer to the speed of light. So we need to demonstrate this effect with scenario 9. Notice the button that goes orange in the top right where it says Verify Velocity C Limit. This allows the user to verify that the math within the algorithm is according to Einstein's formula from special relativity. This graph shows that special relativity spirals the Moon inward at 1 millimeter per orbit, whereas earlier we saw that general relativity caused a 400 meter outward spiral per orbit. They do not balance each other out by a difference which is 400,000 times greater. Now the popular theory reckons that the tides are somehow pushing the Moon away at 38 millimeters per year. Think for yourself. The tides are a constant feature, thus the effect does not change. But the Sun is tugging at the Moon at the closest point between Moon and Sun for every orbit of the Moon around the Earth. But what about the expansion of the universe? The details in this calculation many might reckon to be outdated, But at no point does the tidal theory even take into account that a universe 13.7 billion light years across that expands at light speed will result in the distance between Moon and Earth expanding by 27 millimeters per year. Immanuel Velikovsky was a writer who first had the notion that Venus was a moon of Jupiter. I do not agree with most of his ideas, but his work inspired these algorithms. I wanted to see if a solar system could form from random debris the way popular science suggests. Velikovsky reckoned that Venus was ejected from the surface of Jupiter with an electric discharge, but the law of gravity always returns an object to its starting point in a single gravity field. Here's Arc 7, which shows that the planets originated from the Sun's twin that went nova. Those details are in the videos numbered 4 and 8 on this YouTube channel. See also the links in the description of this video. So, it should be easy to now see why Jupiter has so many satellites, because Jupiter is the core of what used to be a star, but it went nova and produced the solar system. But it is also crystal clear that the bureaucracy that calls itself science has never applied Einstein's notion of gravity moving at light speed to the Moon's orbit in an evolutionary algorithm. Because under Einstein's gravity, the Moon would move away from Earth at about 5 kilometers per year. The result of this would be that less than 70,000 years ago, the Moon would have been near the surface of the Earth. This is contrary to their own established age of the Earth and Moon by many thousands of times. Thus, at least part of Einstein's theory is proven categorically wrong. Gravity must be virtually instant.
Gravity must be virtually instant.
Gravity must be virtually instant.
So you see why I liken science to the apartheid government. Because an elitist faction of nepotists have been proven wrong again and again, but they are too full of pride to just admit that they have lost. Then, without honor, they corruptly cling to power, and thereby deprive future generations of the right to a proper learning process and methodology. Their own offspring end up losing the most due to lies and greed. Lies and greed.